OnePlus took the wraps off the OnePlus 15. Well, it did so in China anyway, but at least we now know what to expect. And some of it's great, and some of it's bad. Meanwhile, Android Auto has an exciting new development in the works, widgets. I am very excited about that one. And finally, the Pixel 10a leaked, and we are starting to put together what we can expect from Google's next budget-friendly smartphone. I'm C. Scott Brown, and it's time for a quick roundup of the biggest tech news that you need to know about. The OnePlus 15 is now official in the company's home country of China. We learned earlier this week that the global launch of the phone is happening on November 13th, but we know from previous releases that the Chinese version and the global version tend to be pretty much identical. So, now that OnePlus has revealed the info on the Chinese model, we already know 99% of what it will announce on November 13th. So, what can we expect from the OnePlus 15? Well, let me start with the really cool stuff. First, we already knew that the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 would power the phone. This is notable because with a November 13th launch, that will make the OnePlus 15 the very first phone widely available in North America with this chipset. As such, if you want to be one of the first to get your hands on Qualcomm's latest powerhouse, the OnePlus 15 is your best bet. OnePlus also revealed some really terrific spec upgrades. The battery is jumping up all the way to a 7,300 mAh silicon carbon cell, which is insane. For the sake of comparison, the Galaxy S25 Ultra has a 5,000 mAh battery, so the OnePlus 15 will almost certainly last way longer than that one. The OnePlus 15's new battery also blows away even the OnePlus 13, which only had a 6,000 mAh battery. I can't believe I just said only 6,000 mAh. Man, OnePlus is crushing it with their batteries.
Crushed it.
One aspect of the display is also being upgraded, which is the refresh rate. OnePlus thought that 120Hz just wasn't good enough anymore, so it's bringing a 165Hz refresh rate to the OnePlus 15. That should be exciting news for all you mobile gamers out there. Other notable specs include Wi-Fi 7 support, 12 gigs of RAM at the base and 16 gigs at the top, a minimum of 256 gigabytes of storage, USB 3.2 Gen 1 speeds, and an integrated IR blaster. Kudos to OnePlus for keeping the IR blaster around. Pew pew. Okay, I did say that there are some things you probably won't like about the OnePlus 15. The first is that even though the company significantly increased the display refresh rate, it simultaneously dropped the display's resolution. The OnePlus 13 has a 2K display, but the OnePlus 15 has a 1.5K display. I feel like most people won't notice the difference, but if you're someone who wants as many pixels crammed into your screen as possible, I'm sure this is disappointing news. But the most significant downgrades are for the cameras. There are 4 cameras on the OnePlus 15, and every single one is weaker than what we saw on the OnePlus 13. I'll show you this chart here so you can see for yourself, but it's crazy to think that the previous model will be so superior to the newest one when you only factor in the raw hardware. Of course, OnePlus will likely try to sell us on the idea that its AI features and the new Detail Max engine will make up for these hardware drops. But we are all smart enough to know that the better hardware you have, the better imagery you can create. If you give AI potato quality, it's going to enhance potato quality. But if you give it amazing quality, it's going to enhance amazing quality. The math here is simple, so I'm not quite sure why OnePlus thinks we won't notice these changes. Anyway, the one thing we don't know about the OnePlus 15 is how much it will cost outside of China. We only need to wait until the November 13th launch to find out, so stay tuned for that. Our next story is very exciting for all of us who use Android Auto in our cars every day. Thanks to an investigation by Assemble Debug in partnership with Android Authority, we have seen evidence that Google is working on bringing home screen widgets to Android Auto. So right now, Android Auto supports widgets, but they're called taskbar widgets. These appear only on the taskbar and give you quick access to things like media controls. Home screen widgets, though, will appear in the main content window of Android Auto, and it looks like you'll be able to do a lot of customization with them to make your home screen truly your own. But basically, the widgets act very similarly to how they do on your phone's home screen. In fact, a lot of these don't look much different from their standard smartphone counterparts. One important thing to note here, though, is that it looks like you'll be limited to just one widget. As far as we can tell, there's no way to completely rearrange your Android Auto display with widgets of your choosing. Once you put a new one in, the current one goes away. Of course, this could be a temporary limitation, but for now, don't expect multiple widgets when this eventually rolls out. Also, the only thing you're really able to control about the widget at the moment is its scale. You can't position or resize the widgets. You'll just need to accept them as they are. Like I said though, this is clearly a very work in progress system. Who knows what this will really look like once it goes live. Speaking of which, it will probably be a while before you see this work in your car. Judging by how long it usually takes Google to roll out features like this once we've spotted them, I wouldn't be surprised if we're still well into 2026 before this launches. Still, this is genuinely exciting news and I can't wait to see it in my car. Our final story today is all about the upcoming Google Pixel 10a. Earlier this week, we saw renders leak over at Android Headlines. To no one's surprise, the renders look a lot like the Pixel 9a from earlier this year. However, there were some changes to note. First, the bezels in the renders appear to be a lot slimmer than they were on the Pixel 9a. The ultra-thick bezels of the Pixel 9a were a common complaint when the phone launched, and these renders make it seem like Google heard the criticism and fixed them up. However, early renders like these are not always accurate, so the bezels might be somewhere in between what we see here and what we saw on the Pixel 9a. Another change is that the SIM card tray is no longer at the bottom of the phone. If you'll remember, the Pixel 10 series was pretty controversial because here in the United States, the SIM card tray is missing on 3 of the 4 phones. Since these renders suggest the SIM card tray is moving, that does bring up the possibility that Google could also be removing it for US models. However, given the Pixel 10a's target market is budget-focused consumers, I think the phone will still have a SIM card tray. It would likely just be at the top of the phone now, which is where it is on the Pixel 10 phones that launched outside of the US. I could be wrong, for sure, but that's what I think is happening. Another design change we see here is that the phone is slightly smaller overall while simultaneously being a tiny bit thicker. The reduction in the phone's footprint could be evidence supporting the reduction in bezels. It's possible that Google is keeping the same 6.3-inch display we saw on the Pixel 9a, but since the bezels are smaller, it can reduce the size of the phone without compromising the screen. That's just speculation on my part, but that would be a very logical explanation for why the phone is slightly smaller. The extra thickness, though, is less straightforward. The first thing that came to mind when I saw that information was that the Pixel 10a would have Pixel Snap support. This would be a huge deal, as it would bring magnetic charging and accessory mounting to a mid-range phone for the first time. Even Apple doesn't bring MagSafe to its budget iPhone, so if the Pixel 10a gets Pixel Snap, it would be awesome. The extra thickness could be thanks to a slightly larger battery too. The Pixel 9a was a battery beast, so it would make sense for Google to lean into that more by increasing the size of the cell. It's possible Google did both, with Pixel Snap support and a bigger battery. It's too early to say, but I'd be excited for either one, honestly. The Pixel 10a likely won't launch until March of 2026, so we still have a long way to go before we learn everything about it. Based on the info we have so far though, it's gearing up to be another solid entry in the lineup. I talk in this video up here for a long time about a bunch of other leaks we've seen with the Pixel 10a. If you want to learn even more, I highly suggest giving that a watch. And hey, now would be a great opportunity to like and subscribe to our channel. Anyway, that's it for this roundup. If you want to dive deeper into these stories, be sure to check all the links down below. Remember to like and subscribe so you'll be notified as soon as the next roundup goes live. See you all soon.